Good morning and welcome to Morning Vibe. My name is Remmy Majala. Thank you so much once again for joining us this morning. Now, what you have just watched is rather a film by Brian Obra, who's a filmmaker, and it was about the blatant police aggression towards journalists. And our conversation today, rather our topic, is defending the truth. Journalism is not a crime. And then we pose the question to you, our audience. Basically, is it a crime to, rather, I beg your pardon, that's not the question I wanted to ask. Has the media provided balanced coverage of the recent protest? Has the media provided balanced coverage of the recent protest? You can get us on our social media handles. That's on Facebook at K24 TV, on X at K24 TV, and on our WhatsApp line right there on your screens. Now, our guest today, we have with us Catherine Wanjeri. She is a journalist. She works right here with us at Media Max. And Catherine, during this particular last protest, not the Nani ones, just right before that, she was shot 3 times. On her thigh, and she's been recuperating. The doctors say she's out of the woods, and I just want to appreciate you so much for coming on set here today to give us your perspective, to narrate to us your experience and how you are doing so far. I know that was not easy for you to watch, but Catherine, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
We also have Brian Obra, who is a filmmaker. Brian, nashukuru sana umekuja. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
And that film, like I mentioned, that you just watched was, Brian. Brian shot it basically, and he also gave us his perspective, I think, from the 3rd week of the protest. You covered you were there from the 2nd week, but
yes,
you covered...
Covering from the 2nd week, attendance from the 1st week.
Got you. All right. And later on, we'll be having with us on Zoom Eric Odwor, who is the Secretary General of the Kenyan Union of Journalists. He'll be joining us, like I mentioned, via Zoom. Right. So thank you guys once again for coming in today. Right. I know it's not the easiest thing to watch. It's quite emotional. And Jerry, I'll begin with you. It's been a hard ordeal for you. And emotionally, physically, how are you doing right now?
I'll start with physically, and thank you for having me, Remy.
You're welcome.
Physically, as you can see, I have moved from using 2 crutches. Now I'm using just 1 crutch, and I'm progressing on well. And as per my doctors are telling me, the wounds are healing in the right direction. So I'm doing well, and I thank God this far, and I believe with time, in a few weeks or so, I'll be out of the crutches and I'll be walking on my own once again. Talking about emotionally, it's still sad, especially from the clip that I've seen, getting out of that traumatic incident. It is not easy, and considering that I had the first concentrated on healing physically before I got any counseling or any mental help. I think that's why I'm still emotional watching such kind of incidents happening, and when I can see journalists who are wearing the press jackets have been attacked by the police officers. So it's not easy, and but I believe it's one step at a time.
Yeah. Now, before we get further into the ordeal that you suffered, you mentioned a lot of times, I know you've said it so many times on air, and I'm sorry again to push you through this, Kate, but you said it was very eerie because your mother called you 7 minutes before you got shot. How was that for you? Like the whole moment, I know everything happened so fast, but in retrospect, when you look back, how was that leading to the moment?
To be honest, because I work with my colleague, Hamombi Wambogo, and I remember that day when we were going to work, I was like, ishish, I didn't want to go to report. I remember even calling one of my editor, and he told me he doesn't think that we are going to cover much from our Kameme side. But we went anyway because, Nakuru is so unpredictable, unlike in Nairobi, because most of the time Nakuru protests start maybe hours after the Nairobi protest. Some other counties' protests have already kicked on. So on that particular day, we went late to cover the protest, and we had covered, we were running up and down with the police officers. To be honest, the police officers didn't want anything to do with us anywhere near them, because I remember there was a time some of the police officers asked us, what are you doing on our side? We are not the one who are protesting. So you should go to those people who are protesting. But we were adamant, we were with the police officers all through, because I started covering the demos at around 1:30 p.m. So then I was shot 2 hours later. Within those 2 hours, there was some cold treatment between us and the police officers, but we didn't think it was going to get to this far, because it was not the first time we were covering the protests. Some of the police officers, the people we would engage with, it was just out of the blues, because regardless of us being in contact with them, talking with them, even sharing water with them, and then all of a sudden we see a police car and comes and it shoots me, and then the next thing I realize I'm on the floor. Maybe asking for help, because at first I didn't feel the pain. Actually thought it was a tear gas canister that had hit me. Right. But unfortunately, when I put my hand on my thigh, I saw blood. And I realized, and I could see, I could see the holes. Yeah. So I realized, and I knew I was shot. But it was my colleagues who made me realize it was actually a gunshot. It was not a tear gas canister. And then from there, they rushed and took me to one of the hospitals within Nakuru City.
I hear you. I hear you. Obra, you said you went to the protests, and in the beginning you just wanted to be part of history. And then now the second week, was it the third week rather, you now covered it with a camera. Yeah. And when you saw the first person drop, that is when you felt everything change for you, and you just wanted to express what you felt using your lens. Just give us that perspective, exactly the motions you went through, what you felt, and what you covered, what you experienced.
Thank you, Remy. First, I'll say I appreciate having Kate with us here.
Yeah.
It wasn't an easy ordeal that you must have gone through. So, and especially it being in the line of duty, yeah, it's an honor to be in the same panel as you. So for me, I think, like you said, my biggest intention was for someone who's not been in that protest, or for someone who wasn't in the front lines or stuff like that, how would I want them to experience what I experienced, right? Because for me, the experience was just completely out of this world. Most of us, and I would believe I'm not the only one, most of us walked into the protest knowing we are calling for our rights, we are asking to be part of the discussion, to be part of the table. I don't think most people realized how much a revolution would cost in terms of life, in terms of damage and stuff like that, right? So for me, when I think that first person I saw lying on the road with, sorry to say, their brains on the tarmac, that to me was my biggest awakening. That, oh yeah, actually, this is actually happening. We are in this now. We are in it, right? And so everything towards building content that I put out was mostly the emotional part of it. You being part of the protest from a very emotional perspective and a very emotional point of view, just the same way I felt at that point.
Right. Yeah. And you said that winning is a perspective of, someone's perspective, whether you think it failed or someone won, at the end of the day, someone's perspective. But what happens to journalists or filmmakers, for that matter, emotionally? Because I don't think, you can be here, for example, at work, Konjeri, guys know, from morning to God knows when, and you're covering things and over, so they get embedded into your mind, and you can't seem to switch it off, even if you try, So did you have moments that stuck with you as you're covering maybe faces of people, moments, even basically what you mentioned? And how do you process that? How now do you even tell that story in particular?
Something that I realized, most of these moments while they were happening, I think based on how much adrenaline is flowing through you, how much situational awareness you're trying to practice, you don't have time to process some of these things. Like you want to go either where the action is, you want to go where you can tell the story best. So you might not have enough time to process all of this. Then the minute you're out of these situations, the minute you're going through your footage, the minute you're trying to now structure whatever you want to put out, that's when you start to realize there are some things inside. There are some emotions that you still haven't figured out where to go with them, right? And I'm glad for people like DocuBox who've been offering free counseling sessions to filmmakers and stuff like that, which are going to be very necessary. For me, how it has manifested so far, I think has been, we have this moment, some nights where you have either dreams of a protest just outside your door, or small sounds that sound like explosions actually get you out of your comfort. So I think that's how, from a personal perspective, it has manifested. I know it's been worse for a lot more people out there, for a lot more journalists, and I hope we can get to a place where that becomes an actual concern, like an actual big concern, especially for journalists covering some of this stuff. That's supposed to be an actual concern. Like we need to have that conversation about what next for us.
Right. So, Wanjari, like you mentioned, before you were working hand in hand, you know, with the police. You're okay. You know, you're even giving toothpaste to a female officer who was, you know, suffering from a lot of, you know, tear gas, the pain and all that. And then he just, you know, went left, right? So, in your experience, why did you feel they became so hostile to journalists, you know, as the protests were happening? Because you said that, you know, you just sensed there was some hostility, but you couldn't place it, you know. Why was that?
Thank you, Remy. I think it's not something that the junior police officers maybe they thought it out of the blues. Mm-hmm. Of course, when they reacted the way they did, it must have been some order from somewhere. Mm-hmm. And you know, like the previous week, let me take you back, before the 16th of July, there was a time they wanted to arrest one. I think people saw that that guy, handicapped guy who was trending in Nakuru. Mm-hmm. So they wanted to arrest that guy, because no matter how many tear gas canister that were thrown onto that guy, he was he didn't want to get out of the street, and maybe they thought he's one of the people who is making the whatever the protest, people not to fear getting out of the streets. So what they did, they threw a tear gas canister onto us, the journalists who were covering that guy, so that they can arrest him. And unfortunately, we wouldn't get intimidated because of the tear gas, because of course we had taken so much tear gas from the police officers. It was not the first, neither the second, because Nakuru is one of the places, you know, if Nairobi, Nakuru retaliates. So I don't know where this hostility came from the police officers, and all I can say is that it did not come from the junior officers who were with them throughout the day. It must be orders that have come from their seniors, because the hostility that we got from them out of the blues, maybe in 2 weeks' time, from the same police officers we were sharing water with, we were sharing toothpaste with, and then all of a sudden they want to see, they don't even want to see even the journalists covering any protest. It was not the junior officers, it was of course the orders from their seniors.
I see. You also mentioned that 2 weeks ago, before that incident, you were shot by, like you got, rather, can I say this, like a scar from a tear gas canister that was shot at you, right? And that was 2 weeks ago, and you felt that you were targeted, right? And then 2 weeks later, you know, literal, you know, gunshot wounds. So, like when you look at that moment, were you the same police officers from that time, or a different time?
You know, unfortunately, in Nakuru, when the protest becomes so rampant, I think the commands come from different sub-counties, and different sub-counties, and police officers from all over the county come in. They concentrate on Nakuru City. So, and of course they have their helmets on, and you know, you are concentrating on covering the protest. You don't care who is the police officer, who is the police officer A, B, C, D. Your concentration is giving the viewers, our viewers, what is happening on the ground. So it was hard for me to identify the police officer. And actually, when when I was hit by the tear gas canister, I was protecting Mombi Wambugu when she was on air. So I was not facing the police officers, I was facing Mombi, so that the police officer can identify that we are the press who are covering the protest. But unfortunately, that was not good enough for them to give us the time to air the views of Kenya. So it was so unfortunate. I told her, and I told one of my colleagues from our radio station, and I didn't think it was something that was major, because it was just my blood clot on the same leg, and then it bounced and it erupted from a different place. So I didn't think, I thought maybe it was an accident. I actually went and confronted one of their seniors and asked them, you could clearly see we were on air, why would you throw a tear gas canister on us? And then he told me, he gave me excuses. No, it was the police officers who are not in uniform, they're the one who threw, because I had told them. So it was just bluffing so that they can protect the police officers who are in civilian. But I don't think it was good enough, or it was justifiable enough for them to throw to us even the tear gas canisters. And then a week or two later, I was shot at. So you wouldn't tell me, I always say, if it was not Catherine, if it was not Wanjeri who was to be shot at, it was a journalist in Nakuru who was to be shot at. Right. Because Remy, as you can see, everyone can clearly see where I was shot at is one only journalist who was standing there and police officers. No protester was there. So it's like it was so clear they were targeting the journalists. Yeah.
Right, right. So, Obra, I'll pose the same question to you, right? Right after the break, though, because you recorded the last Nani protest, basically what we saw on air, and you wrote in on one of your comments on X, and you said it's so blatant. It's like it was just a clear target, from the police to the journalists. So you'll tell us more on that. We're taking a short break. We'll be back with more. Stay with us.